TV's Eyewitness News. This is your local weather expert alert, sponsored by Egan Insurance Agency.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are seeing significant street flooding out in the metro New Orleans area because of the heavy rain that's been moving through the area throughout the afternoon. From Metairie all the way to Slidell, we've seen impacts on the roadways, and we are still seeing some rain coming down at this hour. The Sewerage and Water Board of New Orleans gave us an update just a little while ago saying that Drainage Pumping Station 7 near Orleans Avenue and I-610 has seen the highest rain total at 6.42 inches. All three major drainage pumps at Drainage Pumping Station 7 are back in operation, and they have been throughout the day. Now, that is just one portion of a statement that was sent to us by the Sewerage and Water Board this afternoon. They have had some issues out there at I-10 where there was significant flooding on the interstate around 1 o'clock this afternoon. Water was standing on that section of I-10 that tends to flood anytime we do see significant rain events like this. The pumps that are at that underpass right there on I-10 apparently kept tripping offline. That's according to the Sewerage and Water Board. They say the two pumps right there near the 17th Street Canal and that major pumping station between New Orleans and Jefferson Parish, that it was having some issues. That's why water accumulated on the interstate. Traffic was at a shutdown this afternoon on I-10 if you were trying to get anywhere in the metro area. An operator was able to get those pumps back online, and the water, you can see right there in this live picture, has since receded. So that is good news, and we are seeing some progress out there with this flooding on the roadways. No other major issues reported with the Sewerage and Water Board. However, again, they did see almost 7 inches of rain falling in areas around Mid-City. We heard that also from Councilman Joe Giarrusso, who mentioned that they did get almost 7 inches of rain in sections of Mid-City. We know that that area of New Orleans tends to be a problem whenever we see heavy, severe storms like we have seen today. Now, Eleanor Tabone is in our mobile forecast center this afternoon. She's out and about driving around to see what the conditions are like, and I think she's got a live picture for us of one of the interstates, so we're going to check in with her in just a little bit. But first, we want to get over to Chief Meteorologist Chris Franklin, who's standing by with the latest on the forecast. Chris?
Yeah.
Significant rainfall, and now I think we are able to hear you.
Okay, I apologize, I had my microphone off. But yeah, that camera angle we were watching at West End and 610 from earlier in the afternoon, police had stopped both sides of the interstate because of that flood water. We were able to see slow traffic begin trickling back through, and then eventually now things look to be back to normal. That's not the case everywhere, as we've had a number of reports of some of those underpasses having flooded, and it just takes time for all of that water to recede. We are finally starting to see, though, the rainfall rates coming down significantly. The intensity of the rainfall over the city, while not gone yet, is far weaker than what we had seen just about a half hour ago, where we had some very intense rainfall really around the Riverbend area, uptown, and other parts of Central City. And then as we've gotten into the last, say, 10, 15 minutes or almost 20 minutes now, we've seen those rainfall intensities come way, way down. So still raining, but it's more of a moderate band of showers and some isolated heavier downpours, which are also beginning to weaken. Things have been improving out over Jefferson Parish, onto the West Bank as well, with this entire area still under a flash flood warning. Even as the rainfall comes to an end, the warning is still going to be up because it just is going to take some time for all of that water to recede. And a lot of folks have been asking, well, we've been so dry, wouldn't that help us out? Well, in some instances, yes, but not really the case because of how dry we have been and the level of the drought we've been under. The ground, as it dries out, actually becomes more like cement, and water just runs right off the top. You need kind of a constant, more light to moderate rain to begin to see that soil kind of saturate itself enough where it can then start absorbing water. Because we've been so dry for so long, and because of the level of drought we're under, the ground is more cement, so you kind of get initial runoff. Over time, that water will start to absorb into the soil. I'm sure it is at this point, but initially that was not the case. You basically have, just like you would on streets, just runoff water, so it wasn't able to absorb into the ground. I believe that has since changed because of now the rainfall rates that we have seen so far today. And it isn't just the city, again, that it extended up into Slidell. That rainfall on the North Shore has since come to an end, and more spotty to scattered showers in our bayou parishes and not nearly as much over the river parishes. It all depends upon where these type of boundaries and storms set up, and it just so happened it was over the bulk of the metro area. Some of the official rainfall totals, check out what they saw in Slidell, almost 5 inches of rainfall. Officially over 2.5 inches of rain at Lakefront, yet our official climate gauge at Kenner only 0.4 of an inch. You had just to the east down the road, you saw estimates of 1 to 2 and 3 inches of rainfall in other parts of Jefferson Parish. And you'll notice kind of a bullseye here on our map. That's where right around the lakefront, north of City Park, estimates are 6 to 7 inches of rainfall. And you saw official gauges in the city were recording, again, that kind of 6 to 7 inch rainfall accumulation. So it looks like our radar estimates have verified with some of those higher totals, which seem extraordinary. But what we saw earlier in the day today was a boundary set up right over the city, and you had that training effect where the rain was not going anywhere, and intense rain at that, just not moving over several hours. Doesn't take much rain to get the flooding issues, and that is exactly what we saw during the afternoon today. Again, just kind of updating radar real quick. Those intense rains have since started to wind down, and we should continue to see improving conditions through the rest of this afternoon and evening. Katie?
All right, that sounds good. We like the sound of drying out at this point, even though we've been begging for this rain. We did just get some new numbers from the Sewerage and Water Board. 7 inches of rain they clocked at DPS 7, Pumping Station 7, which drains parts of Lakeview and Mid-City. 7 inches of rain this afternoon, which is a tremendous amount of rain that fell in a short period of time. And that's the area, I believe, where Eleanor Tabone is driving around the Mobile Forecast Center this afternoon to keep an eye on things and check it out for us. Of course, we know that those underpasses tend to flood significantly when we have rain falling this fast, Eleanor.
That's right, Katie. We are out here at the Canal Boulevard underpass. You can just see how much water is sitting in this one section of the roadway. Now, on the other side of the underpass is where we saw earlier that submerged calf. Over here, you can just see how much water is here right now. You can see that marker resting on the underpass, and that marker is basically covered. Now, we've been sitting out here for the last hour and a bit, and the rain started to ease off, and it started to get a little bit heavier again. But again, you can just see how much water is sitting here. Now, there have been people coming out and taking pictures. We just saw one gentleman out here taking pictures. We do not advise people to walk into this floodwater. You don't know what's sitting beneath the surface, so just stay away from this area. Those trying to get to and fro, you're going to have to take another route because this is all just blocked off right now. Again, a lot of water sitting here at the Canal Boulevard underpass. Katie?
Yeah, that is a tremendous amount of water still sitting there. Of course, it's not raining nearly as hard as it was a few hours ago, but that is a dangerous situation. Unfortunately, we see so many times that people end up trying to drive through deep water underneath these overpasses, and you just can't tell how deep it is until you're knee deep in it or neck deep in it in some cases. And so that is a dangerous situation. We did see a car get stranded at that very overpass just a little while ago, as Meg Ferris was reporting for us as we've been continuing to cover this downpour this afternoon. Now, one thing that we wanted to check in on as well is the area around Slidell. Slidell on the North Shore has also seen a tremendous amount of rain, not nearly what we saw in the Mid-City area, but it was enough to cause some street flooding in the areas that typically flood. This is Old Spanish Trail in Slidell, which is one spot that does tend to flood. We were getting reports on Gauze Boulevard, which people who know Slidell know that area tends to flood in spots as well. So anybody who's familiar with the area knows those areas to watch out for, and they certainly needed to do that this afternoon. You can see how deep the water was on the wheel wells of some of these tires on that road. The Old Spanish Trail, one of the major thoroughfares in the city of Slidell. So there were some problems there in Slidell on Old Spanish Trail, and then in other parts of that city as well this afternoon, as they continue to see several inches of rain falling in also a very short period of time. So these are similar scenes that we've been seeing across the metro area as we've been continuing to cover this major flood event. Many people concerned as they headed out to go places and run errands on this Labor Day holiday. The one good thing that we can say is that schools are not in session by and large today. Many people had the day off from work, so not nearly the threat of people being out on the roadways that we would have seen if people had been treating this as every other Monday. Another area that we did see a lot of water was in Gentilly, so let's take a look at that. This is some flooding in Gentilly. Wow, you can see the water really did start to pile up in the neighborhoods. Gentilly, Lakeview, parts of Mid-City, parts of Metairie even seeing significant water on the roads as people tried to get out and about. It has been difficult throughout the day. Hopefully a lot of people, because it's Labor Day, were able to stay home and not get out and about in it. But this area in Gentilly is one of the areas affected by many of those pump stations where we heard the Sewerage and Water Board saying that they clocked 7 inches of rain today, much of that falling within 2 hours. So that is a tremendous amount of rainfall in a short period of time, which makes it very difficult for the drainage pumps to keep up. As we know, in the city of New Orleans, we live in a bowl and they have to pump the water out in order to get it out. So if those pumps are having a hard time keeping up, we do see that water piling up back into the streets. So this is Gentilly. Wow, look at that. Lots of water. Many cars, I'm thinking, from this rain event today did not survive. Many of those who were parked on the streets having a difficult time. You can see one right there on your screen right now. Now, we want to go back over to Chief Meteorologist Chris Franklin for the latest on what's happening right now. You know, we are still seeing that rain come down out there, Chris.
Yeah, and thankfully, I'm actually just kind of building a little graphic here showing some of the rainfall when it began and the fact that it just sat. So kind of going back in time a little bit, here's 9 a.m. Already kind of a band of rainfall right along the Mississippi-Louisiana state line, but the city itself was dry. It wasn't until about midday that we started to get that heavy rainfall, and so kind of putting this into motion slowly, began to see the heavier rainfall starting in eastern St. Tammany Parish this morning. Began to see a few pop-up showers in the metro area, nothing particularly intense, and then most of the focus, at least before noon, was in St. Tammany, and over almost 5 inches of rainfall reported officially at Slidell. Then as we approached the noon hour, started to see some of that heavier rainfall develop over the city. And as we continued through the now early noon, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock time frame, the rain started to get more intense. And notice, as I'm kind of slowly pushing this forward in time, it just did not go anywhere. It was kind of a boundary that set up from almost Slidell right across the city toward Destrehan, and the storms just kept developing along that boundary. So while it looked clear down to the south, and if these storms were moving toward the northwest, it looked like, all right, well, the clearing line isn't too far away. These storms will continue and you'll be in the clear. The problem was it didn't ever clear in that way. They just continued to fire up right along that line. This is going back till about 3:30 or so. Still had some fairly intense rainfall, and then updating radar as of right now. So live radar, what we did have over the city is far, far weaker, and it is starting to let up what would be described as more of a drizzle type rainfall. We do have a live picture, and I apologize, my producer, where is this exactly? This is the Canal Boulevard underpass, which always floods. You see the flashing light there. Saw the exact same indicator at Carrollton, the underpass at I-10 and the railroad tracks. A lot of cars were starting to make some progress or trying to, and then having to turn against traffic because of the high water. So we can actually kind of zoom in, or there's a car. We had spoken with the owner of that car earlier. Meg Ferris was live there earlier, spoke with the gentleman whose car that was that flooded. He had said he was able to see one car go in front of him. It was able to make it through, so then he attempted it, but almost as fast water started coming in from all different directions. Again, water is going to find the lowest spot, and as that is the lowest point in that area, all of the water from the surrounding areas started to flood that area, that intersection. And as I said, as the rains began, most of the surrounding ground, it's either cement or what greenery we do have at that time was still very much incredibly dry and acts more like cement as opposed to being able to absorb that water initially. It is just massive amounts of runoff. So as we saw, the runoff goes to that low point and immediately floods. Thankfully, though, now the water is still high. It will take some time for that to drain, although I would venture to say, I know the last time we had a big flooding event, we were actually kind of watching the water start to recede there. Not to say it will be the case, but hopefully within the next couple of hours, as the rainfall has now just about completely ended, we should start to see some of those high water in those intersections begin to abate within the next couple of hours or so, hopefully, Katie.
Yeah.